there is a larger group of people now than perhaps ever before who is understanding that economy and ecology are linked just as much as health and climate are linked. I feel like there is a huge mafia, there's a lobby
Okay, so you feel like there's
that
a mafia.
there is a mafia because it's a petrochemical product. There is definitely a mafia. So I make sure my baths last as long as a song. So if you're a good singer, sing. If you're not a good singer, just sing a song
Now
and
depends
make
on the
sure your
singer.
bath will last longer than
No,
the song.
but ma'am, that depends on the singer, right?
That's why we all imagine with the greatest singer.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to this very special interview. We have today with us Dia Mirza ma'am to talk on climate change and how to conserve and protect environment. She is an actor, producer, UN Environment Goodwill Ambassador, and UN Secretary General's advocate for sustainable development goals. She has been talking and campaigning, speaking on climate change and how to protect environment. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time. Ma'am,
Thank you
today
for
anyone who cares about environment, climate change, knows, do they know about climate change? In simplest terms, how do you define what is climate change for any person? How do you define it?
Well, I think there are three ways of describing this. But the first thing that I will definitely say is there maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there weren't enough people who understood what climate change is. Today, you have the youngest generation in the world, which is children, who are completely aware of what climate change is. Simply put, climate change is the increasing climatic conditions, whether the temperature. So basically, the earth and all of life that is sustained in it is balanced by a regulated temperature, a temperature that basically allows life to thrive, survive, and facilitate more life. It also forms a very fragile ecological balance, which sustains all life, yours and mine, everybody else's. And what climate change means is because of human actions, because of the way we've been doing business, because of the way we've been producing and consuming and altering the surface of the earth, basically destroying natural resources, emitting pollution, and everything else that we've been doing. All of these actions have caused for an increase in the overall temperature. And that increase in temperature is leading to a intensity and a frequency of drought, of floods, of all kinds of weather conditions that are destroying that ecological balance, that natural fragile balance that sustains life, and causing obviously huge crisis, human and wildlife and environmental crisis.
Ma'am, this topic, climate change and environmental protection, is not a glamorous issue. So it's not something like entertainment or sports news or something like that, which attracts a lot of attention, sadly and unfortunately. How can we and how can environmental activists and someone like you who talks a lot on environment and climate change communicate this better with the youngsters, with the youths of this country, with the people on the topic? Because it's a very serious topic and not everybody likes to talk about this, unfortunately.
You're right, Shivam. I think what is remains most unfortunate is the fact that climate action and environmental and climate related issues are not discussed in mainstream media enough.
Yeah.
And there's not enough emphasis laid upon the emergency, the climate emergency that we are facing and experiencing. Um, and one of the reasons why that is happening is because, you know, all those organizations or corporations or
Yeah.
institutions that are causing climate change are responsible for the devastation and destruction of our planet. Um, largely I feel manipulate media. They also kind of manipulate what you and I should be thinking, feeling, and how we should be behaving. Because when you think about it, most political discourse is, of course, very unfortunately, remains divisive. We're not really talking about environmental challenges and solutions enough. We're focusing on religion, on state, on all kinds of things that make you really wonder whether we're actually in 2020, 2021 now. And it's But I feel in many ways this is changing, because what the pandemic did to the world is it helped the world recognize that if you do not take cognizance of the fact that human health and environment are completely interlinked, are connected, you're fooling yourself. So no matter who you are, no matter how much money you think you have, you are going to stay home. You will have to recognize the fact that the devastation and destruction you've caused is going to have a price that you are to pay, and economies have paid this across the world. Now most people understand the language of money, and when economies are hit and business was hit the way it was, I think that must have, I hope with all my heart, must have made many of these people recognize the fact that there is a problem
So,
and we need to take it more seriously. I think more people in the world last year recognized that climate change is a reality, it's a serious issue, and overall climate action and participation and resolutions to adopt the sustainable development goals increase significantly. I genuinely believe that the world is going to step up action on climate this year going forward. And I feel like the pandemic had a big part to play in making that possible, including the media. I feel like even the media has started reporting a lot more on environment and climate than they did before.
ma'am, before we talk about other issues like how media reported and single plastic use, I just wanted to ask you, has this pandemic taught us humans anything about how serious and urgent should we all be towards climate change? Has it taught us even now after the pandemic?
I most certainly hope so, because I think a few of the things that have become glaringly evident because of the pandemic is the fact that environment and health are deeply interlinked. You cannot separate the two. Human actions and behavior have caused this virus outbreak. The fact that we are trading wildlife, we are destroying our forests, we're basically transferring uh, zoonoses, like diseases that belong to a certain species or the wild, to other parts of the planet, where it then reacts and causes what it has. And according to the United Nations Environment Program and many other knowledge bases, 75% of all emerging diseases will be zoonotic in nature. And WHO has been giving that information. The science is there for people to access and see and hear. And I feel like um, there is a larger group of people now than perhaps ever before who is understanding that economy and ecology are linked just as much as health and climate are linked. So I feel that should bring about a big change.
Ma'am, many people have debated and talked in the country, in this country and across the world about banning single-use plastic. Our Prime Minister also spoke on this. But because of the pandemic, we have seen that PPE kit, equipments, masks, it has in fact increased. We have started using plastics more than before. Do you think what is that one problematic area which is stopping us or cutting the impactful ban or elimination of single-use plastic in this country? What do you
You know,
think on that?
plastic to me is the biggest irony, Shubham. You know, the because on one part, plastic is life saving
Yeah.
because they're the packaging of food and other such things, also like transport and aircraft material. There's so many things that plastic is used in, and that saves lives, has extends the lifespan of things, has really helps humanity. But then there is the unfortunate reality of single use plastics and all of that plastic that is used to package food and beverage that nobody seems to be accountable for. Despite the fact that we've been campaigning hard and really calling on companies to be responsible for their packaging. It's something called extended producers responsibility. We really hope governments will put that in place. And also, more than anything else, you really hope and pray that companies will become more responsible for it. I'll give you a small example, Shubham.
Yeah.
5 years ago, I discovered that something like a sanitary napkin is made mostly of plastic. What happens to the sanitary napkins that women discard? They're incinerated or they show up in a landfill. What does that do? It creates toxicity and ill health. So an item, a personal hygiene item that is supposed to secure the health of a woman is in fact damaging the health of the environment, therefore damaging human health.
Yeah.
So that's the irony. And when you have alternatives where you can produce completely biodegradable sanitary napkins, or go back to basics, do what our grandmothers did, use cloth, reusable and washable cloth.
Yeah.
And a lot of women, a lot of environmentally conscious women in India and the world today are switching to the menstrual cup or sanitary napkins that are made of cloth, which are reusable and washable, or biodegradable napkins. So I feel like there are states that have banned single-use plastic, 28 in India, but the ban is not implemented on the ground for many reasons. One, people don't seem to really care because it's so convenient, without thinking, you just pick up a plastic bag, you take your things home, and you discard the bag when you're done with it. Companies, producers are not thinking, vendors are not thinking, and I feel like there is a huge mafia. There's a lobby.
Okay, so you feel like
That
there's a mafia.
there is a mafia because it's a petrochemical product. There is definitely a mafia that pushes its way back into the market each time it has been removed from the market. I know this for a fact that before Maharashtra went into state elections, single-use plastics were banned. You could not find a plastic bag or a plastic straw anywhere in Mumbai city. Come election time, everything was back. And now we're struggling to get rid of it again. So I feel like it is that. The unfortunate reality is that is what it is. So until the conscience of the producers, the manufacturers, and of course us, you and me, civil society, where our behavior changes and our choices change, nothing is going to change.
Yeah. So, ma'am, last year, the central government introduced and brought in environmental EIA 2020 draft. And a lot of experts criticized it, saying that it's very problematic. It will be allowing the private players, private companies to go and harm the environment. What do you think about that? Was it so
I
problematic?
Yes, it was. I was one of those, how many, 17 lakh people who sent emails to the government of India protesting the draft EIA. I galvanized many of those emails as well. I mobilized more people to send the government those emails because it was necessary, and it is necessary for public participation, for people to know what is being drafted as policy and what needs to change must be challenged. And I do hope with all my heart that the government reviews our suggestions and incorporates them.
So, ma'am, development at the cost of environment. Now, this is a tagline or a concept that a lot of people use. They say if modernization comes, urbanization happens. If you want development, if you want progress, then it will be at the cost of environment. How do you see this whole debate and discussions? Is it justified? Are they justified when they say development will come and environment will have to pay a price for that?
not anymore, because
Mhm.
innovation and solutions exist. Of course, you want to be rigid, and you want to be ignorant, and you want to be conscienceless, and destroy the health of the planet and therefore your own health. Then of course you can believe that, progress at the cost of the environment. But it's the biggest fallacy,
Mhm.
because if we continue to view environmentalism as obstructionism, we will be, reducing our chances of survival. That's all. The fact of the matter, Shubham, is that the human race is confronted by an existential crisis. There is a crisis on water. There is a crisis for health. There is a crisis on practically everything: air, everything that we need to live, to thrive, and survive. So, how ignorant and how short sighted and how myopic is the view of those who believe that securing the health of the environment cannot happen without damaging it. And quite frankly, there are enough examples in the world today, more so in countries like India, because I feel like we are culturally, we've inherited the knowledge that our existence, our well-being is linked to the environment. We worship God, we worship the sun god, we worship trees, we worship rivers. We understand fundamentally as a race, as a, you know, culturally in
Yeah.
India, that our lives are connected to the health of the environment. And if we just take examples, you think about Arthashastra, the Gajavahanas that were,
Mhm.
documented. We had perhaps one of the first few wildlife sanctuaries in the world, protected areas for elephants, elephant forests. So I think we've known it all for a long time. The Western world and their idea of modernization and the way they kind of went about causing destruction and devastation has caused the imbalance that it has. Perceptionally, also, a consumerist capitalist society is going to make you feel like you need to want more in order to think you're doing okay, right? And you need to have more to believe that you're doing well in life. So I feel like if we can just go back to basics and even perhaps just be inspired by our own tradition, our own values, our own history, and our own understanding of how connected our lives are with the health of the environment, we should do much better. And I feel like now that I'm interacting and engaging with so many young, intelligent, exciting Indians, so many who've been featured even on The Logical Indian,
Yeah, yeah.
who are coming up with innovations and solutions and technology, and are setting up companies that uphold the values of the Sustainable Development Goals, that are following the North Star of the goals and understand how important they are for our health and survival and progress as a nation. I feel like we're doing a lot better, and we will continue to do much more.
Yeah.
So long
So,
as
yeah.
governments and policymakers also kind of embrace this reality as fast and as well as young people in our country have.
So we need to go back to basics, and if we want, we can achieve what we have to in terms of protecting the environment. If I'm right in understanding you, so I also want to talk
Absolutely.
about conserving water. Like you have also spoken a lot on conservation of water, how India is facing water scarcity. How serious is this water scarcity and crisis challenge in this country today?
It's huge. Almost according to a Niti Aayog report that was released in 2018 or 19, I'm not sure which year,
Mhm.
27 cities in our country would have not enough water by 2022. And 2020 as well. Last year also, many cities experienced almost no water. Chennai experienced it. Um, there are water studies that show that the groundwater tables are dropping significantly because we just haven't managed our water well. And of course, climate change also affects water tables and the health of our rivers and water systems. So, and water is lifeblood. It's everything you need for everything that you need, right?
Actually.
How without it you can't grow your food, you can't, manufacture your goods. There's no life without water.
Yeah.
So that's how severe this crisis is. And I think it will take, even if I mean, if I had to put it in as logically as I can, you know,
Mhm.
you just think about this, Shubham. The geographical landmass of India is 2.3% of the geographical landmass of the planet.
Yeah.
That's a very small piece of land. And on that lives the second largest population on the planet. That is entirely dependent on its freshwater supply. And if that goes into scarcity, which it has, then it's a serious problem.
Ma'am, as per Global Climate Risk Index 2021, this is a report, India is ranked seventh in terms of climate change impact. Do you think we have progressed since then? I mean, it's really very daunting. We have
Yeah,
ranked,
it's scary.
yeah, it is. Have you
Scary.
progressed?
See, Shubham, there are a couple of things that I feel we should really acknowledge. One is
Mhm.
that the developed parts of the world have been the most polluting, right? And on their part, when they signed the Paris Agreement, they
Yeah.
were also to direct investments and funds towards developing nations that were confronted by climate crisis. And we're dealing with the economic, uh, you know, uh, hits that the climate crisis was, because every time you have floods, every time you have, landslides, every time you have some kind of a environmental issue, it causes devastation and destruction of all kinds of systems, right? How housing, roads, all kinds of things get destroyed. So then you lose the so much money in that situation, and then you have to rebuild from there. So up, and not only is the money required to secure and build back, but the money is also required to incentivize and fund newer technology that will move towards sustainability. So the world owes it, as per their commitment, a certain amount of money to be allocated to developing nations like India.
Yeah.
Having said that, I
Yeah.
feel like despite all of what we've been experiencing, we've made some progress.
Okay.
Like we initiated the World Solar Alliance. We succeeded in putting it together. We've also generated a substantial amount of solar energy, setting a huge precedent and example for the rest of the world. And like that, there are many other programs that the government has launched and has been successful in. And there are lots of private entities also who are doing extraordinary work in agriculture, in other industries that are completely going towards sustainability.
So, ma'am, the recent report, as you said, Oxford International Report said that the richest of the rich countries have been driving climate change, and the worst sufferers are the poor countries or economically poor countries. So, that's a problematic. So, the next question I would like to talk is, ma'am, since you are from a film industry also, how do you see cinema and entertainment industry can play a major role towards portraying or working towards climate change and communicating with the masses?
Um, okay, so I feel like there are many different things that can happen. One, of course, is people who are in film can, as ambassadors or advocates, bring
Yeah.
change in the way they produce, in the way they work, in the way they run their households, and start advocating that change to more and more people, as some of us already are.
Yeah.
And because of the sphere of influence we have, that could lead to bigger change and more improved understanding and consciousness, which is wonderful. That's one role that we can play. The other part that we can play is to bring the the narratives of um, im- social impact, the things that happen to people, to communities, to individuals because of changing climate. I feel like cinema and storytelling can play a very big part in helping more people recognize how linked social justice is with environmental and climate justice. And there are so many stories of heroes to be told. There's so many stories of just triumph to be told, and so many stories that can be heartbreaking that must be told. And I feel like that's an area that India especially is far behind on. We just haven't made enough, we're just not telling enough stories on climate.
So, ma'am, initially you said that the media is now playing better role in terms of communicating on climate change than earlier. But still, do you think media is not reporting or not doing that kind of reportage that the climate change or environment requires or deserves to be? As like not just the media, like here at Logical Indian, for example, in Logical Indian also since inception we have special beat itself on our website, on our platforms, that talks about sustainability, climate change, and how to report that. So first, what do you think, how the media can play the role, how can we in the media do, and what can we do to do better reportage on climate change, and what's your message for Logical Indian community on this?
uh, the first thing I feel is that everybody, every
Mhm.
single one of us, has to acknowledge the fact that we are in the midst of a human crisis, an existential crisis. And that should shake our innards and make us want to act and
Yeah.
make a difference and challenge and question and celebrate everything that is directing action towards a better climate and better ecological balance. um, and that holds just as good for the media as it does for the rest of us. I feel like the media needs to do a lot more to question accountability, a lot more to expose industries that are polluters, do a lot more to follow up on stories that need year-round following up. So one example would be air pollution. We should be talking about polluted air 365 days of the year, given the number of people we lose to air pollution every year, and the fact that it is a national issue. It's not a Delhi issue or a Bombay issue. It's a national issue. I mean, a statistic like 15 of the most polluted cities in the world, on the planet, are in India, should make us want to do much more to fix that problem, because these are problems that can be fixed. So I really feel like, just like young people are forming networks on the internet, whether it's the Fridays for Future movement and many such other movements of young people who are making organizations, governments, individuals, industries accountable. They're questioning them. I feel that the media can do a lot more to do the same. I'm very grateful to the Logical Indian for all the positive stories that have been highlighted and all the terrible stories that you have shared with us. I follow you guys
Yeah, yeah.
closely, and I'm very inspired and very motivated by many of the write ups that you do. And I'm very grateful for the fact that you do what you do.
Thank
But
you,
I do
ma'am.
hope that you can continue to pay a lot more attention to climate.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. And ma'am, you have recently spoken about eco-friendly lifestyle, and you said that 2021 we can adopt several ways of living eco-friendly lifestyles. Could you share some suggestions how it can be possible?
So there are many things that we can do. There's a wonderful community of people called Count Us In,
Mhm.
www.countusin.com, that offers you 16 solutions that every one of us can adopt. You can go there and check that out. But there are a few things that I've been doing now
Yeah,
for the last 5-6 years, and every year the action points increase. But I'll share some of the ones that I do diligently. The first is refuse all single-use plastics, bags, cutlery, straws. Um, I've gone to the extent of replacing my plastic toothbrush with bamboo toothbrushes about 6 years ago. So that reduces your plastic footprint. Single-use plastic bottles. So carry your own traveling bottle. Refuse all single-use plastics. Number one. Number two, take short baths. So I make sure my baths last as long as a song. So if you're a good singer, sing. If you're not a good singer, just sing a song
Now
and
depends
make
on the
sure your
singer.
bath lasts longer
No,
than the song.
but ma'am, that depends on the singer, right?
That's okay. We all imagine with the greatest singer. Uh, so the second would be take short baths and turn taps off when you're soaping your hands or your utensils or you're washing clothes, whatever the activity. Turn the tap off when you're soaping, and don't endlessly leave the tap on while you're, doing other things. Third would be it's something that we've done in our co-op, but I hope every cooperative and every household can do, which is to segregate waste at home and compost kitchen waste. You will be contributing so much to the environment by doing this. You would be reducing air pollution and soil pollution and water pollution, many, many things. So, composting and segregation of waste. Fourth, are we on number four? I'm
Yeah,
number
yeah,
three or
yeah.
fourth would be, so I've kind of replaced the traditional idea of material gifts with growing trees in people's names. So if it's your
Okay.
birthday or anniversary or a new baby is born, whatever the occasion, I will grow trees in your name. So plant more trees, grow more
Interesting.
trees, and be responsible for the care of the tree. Fifth,
Yeah.
um, what should I say that I think everybody can do? I
It is
follow a plant.
possible.
Yeah, I
It is
follow a
possible.
plant-based diet. So I don't eat meat and like dairy and products that come
Yeah.
from animals. Um, it's something that has not only helps the environment, it really has helped my health. I
Mhm.
feel lighter and more active and more energetic than I ever have. It makes a big difference. So I feel these are five things that all of us can easily do.
My last question to you, ma'am. As UN's Secretary General Advocate for Sustainable Development Goals, what are your pieces of advice and suggestions for youths and youngsters of this country on climate
The
change and saving the environment?
the sustainable development goals are the North Star.
Mhm.
These are goals that are not some abstract, faraway theory that belong to, I don't know, industries and governments to adopt. No, these are goals that you and I can adopt.
At
Like I
individual capacity.
as individuals. Like these are my life goals. Of the 17 sustainable goals, these are my life goals. I've taken up three goals, which I focus all my life and energy and efforts in delivering to those three goals at an individual level, right? Um, so that's the first thing that I think all young people should know. Adopt the goals. Choose one if you have can. If it would be even better if you can choose more than one goal, right? The second is that know that your choices are powerful. Every time you refuse something that is causing environmental damage, whether it is fast fashion, whether it is food, a certain kind of food, whether it is policy, it could be anything that you perceive as, of course, with a better understanding, that you understand is degrading the environment. The power of your choice, your single choice makes a big difference. So don't ever think that, oh, मेरे एक के करने से क्या होगा. बहुत फर्क पड़ता है. And the third thing I feel all young people should know is that every one of us has to become participative in nation building. and understand that we have to become a lot more proactive and aware of what is happening in our state, in our country, what policies are being formed, what laws are being formed, what work is happening, and understand that we can, at an individual level, question that, make a change, and demand the changes that we need.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for speaking to us at the Logical Indian. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Shubham.